Okay, very excited for this one. Welcome everyone to this new episode of Iron Minds. We've got elite lifter, elite coach here with us, Youssuf El Adlani. I think it's going to be very fun. Also because Yusuf is Italian and he has, like, of course, a special place in our heart as Italian fans of the sport. So yeah, hey Yusuf, how's it going?
Very good, thanks. Thanks for inviting me. And I agree, it will be a very fun podcast.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get started. Tell us a little bit about your story in terms of how you got into powerlifting, what Yusuf was like before powerlifting, the first steps that you moved into the sport, and so on.
Indeed. So, as not everyone knows, I was born in Italy. Like, I'm truly Italian, 100%. And I moved to France when I was 16 years old. Before that, I did a lot of tennis and martial arts. And the problem is, when I came to France, I didn't speak French. So I just started doing runs, calisthenic stuff. And at that time, my brother bought from Decathlon a bar with some weights. And I just randomly started lifting weights, okay? It was very low weights. Like I did my first deadlift with 50 kilos and it was hella heavy. So, and I went on with this like for 1 year, 1 year and a half. And then I moved to Montpellier, the first big city for me for the university. I entered my first gym and I had my first membership. And at that time, I always did squat, bench, and deadlift in some way because at the time I followed YouTube gurus like the Alan Thrall and stuff, So any huge guy on YouTube that did heavy weights, I liked it. And I randomly started lifting heavy weights, as heavier as possible at least. And one day I saw a guy at the gym who did a 300 kilo deadlift in the minus 83 kilos. And at that moment I knew I want to do the same as he does. And I started doing powerlifting like this.
Interesting. Okay. And so while you moved your first steps into the sport, or even before, like when you were doing martial arts, were there any figures that you learned a lot from that were influential, shaped your thinking, and now maybe you still bring those lessons with you?
So the only real influence I had in my life started when I was doing tennis, playing tennis, and it was Rafael Nadal. Like it's the only athlete that I actually really looked up to like an idol. And until this day, I think his work ethic, his behavior on the court, and many things that made him the athlete he was are the thing that most shaped me as an athlete myself.
Pretty cool. And like in terms of like something that I'm interested in is in terms of athletes that you've coached and that you still coach. Like do you feel like you've learned something from your athletes? Do you think there's some lessons that sometimes an athlete can teach to the coach, right? So in reverse.
Indeed. So I thought a lot of time about this, but I can't really figure out one athlete that really stood out and made me learn something huge. But I definitely can say that kinda each one of them, of course, there are athletes that had a bigger impact on my career, on my person as a human being, but kinda many of them teach me something in their way. Like some had a really busy schedule, working an amount of hours that should not be legal, and still kept training hard, being accountable on their side. Others went through big struggles, personal struggles, and still kept going. Some were just really disciplined for a very long time, no mistakes on their side. Others maybe just went through injury with a mindset that was really astonishing. Like each of them had something to teach me. But if I have to take one person in my powerlifting career that really um, helped me the biggest way to make me who I am today, is my first coach, Anthony Graziani, which is not my athlete, of course, but who was an athlete as well. And he really shaped me. Like he really teach me a lot of things.
Interesting. And like um when you look at the coach to athlete relationship, how important do you think that is, like, in the overall picture of an athlete making long-term progress?
So it kind of depends, of course. We are all different, but in our ways, I think it's a very important thing that the athlete and the coach get along together. Which doesn't mean we have to be friends, close friends, but we have to understand each other, to care for each other, and to really have a like synergic work together. We can't be going different ways in our mindset, our point of views. We have to be on the same path together, and as long as we stay on that, we can have little moments where it doesn't work as we want. But as long as the main goal, the main point of view stays the same, it's what needs we all need.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so this is a question that I always ask, like, if I give you, coach to athlete relationship, psychological traits of the athlete, as well as the lifestyle of the athlete. And so these are more of the social sciences factors. And then on the other hand, I give you genetics, programming, and technique. How would you rank these 6 variables? Like, what do you think matters the most when it comes to, making long-term progress?
So for me, the number one factor is the athlete's mindset, because without that, you can have everything you want. You won't get far. Like, you can have the best genetics, the best coach, the best program. If you don't want it, if you don't work hard, like, you won't get anywhere near your top end. Okay. Second, though, it's genetics, of course. We can't bypass that. It's we live in the real world, and you can have all the discipline you want, work as hard as you can, eat good, sleep well, and if you don't have the genetics until a certain point, you can't go as far as someone else who is working less hard and stuff. Okay. After that, it kind of depends. I think the most overhyped thing is technique. Like, it's very, very important. I'm not saying it's not important, but when I say that technique is overhyped, is when you want to standardize a certain type of squat, of bench and deadlift. We say that it have to look a certain way. As long as it's kind of efficient for your lift and you don't get injured, that's good enough to get very close to your top end. Other details are often just steps that you need when you kind of struggle to progress after a long time. But there are so many ways to break through a plateau that is not from technique that I think it's kind of overhyped. Lifestyle, it's probably third place, because, if you have a very stressful life, family, business, and anything can interfere with your recovery, with your mental strength during training and preps. So you kind of get easily injured when your outside lifestyle factors are very bad. So I would place that on third place after genetics and athlete's mindset. And then I will take fourth place, probably coach athlete relationship, because program can be like not the best for you, but as long as you believe in it, you have something supporting you, communicating and stuff, you will find a way to make it work. I don't think there is the optimal program for everyone. We can all work with different methods. As fifth place, program, and sixth place, technique.
Very interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's something that I've been thinking about a lot. And, the reason why this question came to mind is I see a lot of lifters focus, like, basically almost only on programming and technique when something is not going well. And they ignore the fact that, to me as well, those are the last 2 points. Like, I agree 100% with you. There's so much more
Nice.
that comes before that, so much more. Like, I see lifters who are like maybe plateaued, and they're like, okay, I need to find these magic tip to
Yeah.
to like change my technique, and finally I will make it through. When again, like, there's so many other factors. So yeah, like,
Yeah.
I 100%.
Well, indeed, technique and programs are the only one where you can have quick fixes,
Yes.
but quick fixes are not real fixes. Like, it's something you hope in, and most of the time you change up things and you just end up being even more lost on where you're at. But yeah, definitely not the main focus point most of the time.
Yeah, and also we come back to this, but the thing is, um, it's true that you can control programming a technique most directly, but it's also true that you can start being chaotic with it, and making choices driven by panic, because you have control over them, and so you start changing different things every workout, and then it gets a mess, right? Because how do you
Yeah.
know what works and what doesn't? So yeah, that's another interesting topic, but we'll come back to this later. Something that I wanted to focus on is, when you say the mindset of the athlete matters most, what do you mean? Like, what are the psychological traits that you see as most valuable in a lifter?
Okay, so let me phrase this correctly in English. But the main thing is that, like, if I had to resume it in one word that can uh, englobe all other factors, it's that you have to be relentless. Like, you need to be the kind of athlete that doesn't stop in front of anything. Like, that's what's gonna make you go far. Like, you can go through injuries, personal problems, plateaus, like for months or years you can't find any way of progress, and you just keep going, keep going, keep going. As long as you keep going, you have a chance to win. And so yeah, you have to be relentless, and that's the main thing you have to work on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's true. Like, I would say that my answer is, you've got to be able to stick through the lows and just keep going. And the mistake that I see certain people make is, like, a bad workout happens, maybe a plateau for a while, and they start overthinking, right? They start questioning everything, and being like, maybe I'm not that good, maybe I should quit, and so on. And that's when, yeah, like, you basically prevent yourself from becoming from making long-term progress, I would say. Because then, of course, not everyone can go to Sheffield, right? Only few. But everyone can get to 100% of their potential. And if you are not able to go through the difficult moments, you're definitely gonna stop far from your 100%.
Yeah, like what I think about this is that power lifters, especially, are very egocentric. Like we have a sport where until a few years ago it was very easy to be someone. There were not many athletes. It was kind of easy to be a top national athlete. Kind of easy, of course. You have to keep it in context, but and people kinda can easily compare to each other because we lift kilos. It's not a performance like tennis, basketball, where you kinda can have some subjective opinion on that. And people are very egocentric and always think either it's everything going well and, oh, I'm gonna be a world champion, I'm feeling good, and as soon as it gets bad, or I'm a victim. Other lifters are easily progressing, I'm struggling, I'm working as harder as them. But actually, we don't know the lives of each other, and we should just focus on ourselves. It's kind of easy to be said, not as easy to be done. We kind of always have moments when we fall into the trap of comparing to other lifters. But yeah, we just have to kind of zoom out, look it from another point of view, and just understand that everyone goes through the same struggles as we do. Like, it may be different. Some may be financial, other from relationship, other from work. It can be every kind of stuff. But there's no one lifter in the world who's having a very easy life at all time, not even the strongest. And if you're and the thing that I like the less from powerlifter is that, yeah, but it's easy if you're struggling, but you are a top national athlete. It's easy, like you're already strong. Like, no, it's just different. Like, you are not yet strong, you are not a national level athlete, you're struggling. Yeah, don't have pressure on you. It sucks because you feel like you're weak, like if you're not getting closer. I understand that. I got many lifters who go through this, and you just have to understand that if you're strong, weak, intermediate, it doesn't change anything. Everyone has a different kind of pressure. Everyone has his struggles, And it's just powerlifting, man. It's hard from time to time. Like everything that you do with the willing of doing good, it gets hard at some time. So
Yeah. Joe Stanek made a nice reel about this. Like he was saying that powerlifters should learn to be more like a goldfish. That is, something bad happens, 10 seconds after you forget. Something good happens, 10 seconds after you forget.
yeah,
You get happy, then we move on. You get sad,
yeah,
we move on. Right. And I think that that's really cool because, like, instead, too many people spend too much time focusing on what happened. And, the truth is they cannot control it anymore because it's gone. And the only thing that you can do is focus on, the present and what
yeah.
you can do best next workout. Right. So I think that's a good analogy. Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah. And so in light of all we said, I'm interested in this question. Say, an intermediate / advanced lifter comes to you and they've been plateaued for a while, but you know that they're consistent, they're hardworking, they put effort into what they do, and so on. So question one is, what does your process look like for, basically understanding the issue? And question two is, statistically, in your experience, what is the main reason why people go through plateaus? Of course, at
Okay,
intermediate / advanced level. I'm not talking about elites.
indeed. So the first thing, like I always have a call with the new athlete, of course, should be the bare minimum. And we are gonna directly put aside that maybe had an awful program. There are sometimes athletes that comes to you that have been coached in a very bad way. So we're gonna remove any possibility of a very, very, very bad written program or very, very bad technique. It would be too easy to work on that. Let's say he comes with a really basic program that should work most of the time, a very mid technique, which works. It's not optimal maybe, but it's good. First of all, like based on my experience, of course, the first thing that I can put the hands on is the program. Okay, I'm not going to work on the technique. I don't know the athlete, but I know that the program is not working. I know what he has done for the past few months or year, and so I'm gonna switch up kinda everything and do it my way. Like like any way that didn't work, I'm gonna coach him my way, and we'll see and we'll analyze what happens. That's the first step. Second, in the first few weeks, months, you have to see how he approach training. Of course, you kind of get a full view on, is he going all in, or he's like mentally, the mental side, is he training very hard? Is he really trying, or does he not believe it anymore? Are the outside factors of the lifestyle kinda on a good base? You don't need to have everything optimized, of course, especially for an intermediate. And after that, you either find the magic pill actually for a program. Like maybe he needs more intensity, maybe he needs a phase where he lifts less heavy and kind of rebuild the confidence in his lifting. But most of the time, it's like I would take the mental side into account with the program. You have to find something that gives him confidence first, and then something that can give him the opportunity to express that confidence under load. Not you don't have to make until PRs until the third block to make him feel better. You have to make him move weight in a way that he feels like, I'm getting somewhere. So most of the time you start kind of light, and you just find a way that he doesn't feel too tired, and he's lifting good weights in a good way.
I
And you
see.
kind of build upon that. You then, when you kind of get to know him, you can add volume, etc., to make him progress for real. But at first, you have to make him feel good. Once he
Mm,
feels good, you can build on that.
yeah, that makes sense. And so then the question shifts to, when an athlete, like in your experience, right? If you look at the blocks where your athletes have made the most substantial progress, like the most positive blocks you've ever prescribed to someone, like, what do you think happened there? Like, do you think it was a combination of factors? Like, I mean, I assume, genetics in a certain sense, of course, but also like, do you think that you managed to get in a good spot in terms of programming, in terms of technique? Like, do you think that that's something that you can replicate at will? Or do you feel like it's something that is like, more uncontrollable?
Okay. It kinda depends on the athletes, but I'm gonna take multiple examples, okay? For some intermediate, very close to a very good level of athletes, okay? Some of them have a kinda well-organized life, okay, very regular life. And in that point, once you find what works, it kinda get very easy to replicate it again and again and again. And kind of stops only when you end up doing too much. You do a certain amount of sets with a certain average intensity for each block, and you just progress with very small steps, block by block, and the athletes keep going as well. He ends the block with some room, and you get closer to the top end at one moment. At that moment, if you make the mistakes that you still go for some progress the block after, maybe you take the risk that you're gonna disrupt everything and you need to restart it from the beginning, which doesn't mean you didn't make progress, but you're just slowing down and you need to restart from the start point, which is not the same start point, of course, but based on average intensity, you have to start from the same point with heavier loads because he got stronger. And which that is very easy to manage. Like, you have an athlete, he's doing always the same thing, he just progress. There are athletes that are kind of more random because maybe they overshoot sometimes. They are less reliable on controlling the training stimulus. Like, you prescribe something, and he does not respect that all the time. So there you find patterns and you just kind of learn how to adapt to what he does. Maybe that he needs actually to have a very heavy session at one moment. He's gonna overshoot that session, probably. He does. The effects when you got to learn how he works, how to adapt the training after that and the training after that, and you kind of have to like view in advance what's going to happen. It's less easy. You have more room for error in that case, but like, you have to find patterns. Once you find the pattern, you can replicate it most of the time for almost a year at least, and with very small adaptations here and there.
Okay, so basically you're also talking about pacing, right? You're
Yeah,
talking
indeed.
dictating a certain rhythm to the training in such a way that you don't go too fast and you don't go too slow, right?
Indeed.
Yeah. And so this is a cool question because I think, like, my experience is that even like elite coaches, some of them answer A, some of them answer B. I think this is, something that is definitely not agreed upon by everyone. So you have a meet in October with one of your athletes, right? It's a very important meet. You have two strategies. Strategy A, you plan backwards. You decide that they need to hit certain ways, or at least they need to have a certain dose of stimulus, and you basically go backwards, right? So some people even plan equations that kind of tell them, like, again, it's about the rhythm, right? For example, post competition we go a bit slower, then we ramp it up, and then before the competition we again. Some people maybe get less mathematical about it, but that's still the approach. And like, I know elite coaches who do the opposite. That is, I don't even plan backwards. I just start from this block and we'll see in 4 weeks. Like, there's no plan. It's just, there's this block. I'm going to try to make this block work. And in 4 weeks, I'll basically collect the information that emerges out of that block. and then we'll see, all the way.
Yeah. So I will be another one who doesn't really put the balance for one or the other because it depends on the athlete, I will take the same examples I took before. You have a really predictable athlete. You can definitely do a top down, like you know where the comp is. You just can plan it backwards because you know how he's gonna react, what he's gonna do, so you can kind of predict in the future, go backwards, and then you will have just to slightly adapt on the, we are not robots, so we definitely have like uncertainty in what's gonna happen in the future. But in that case, you can do that, and most of the time it will work at least good, maybe not perfectly, but at least good. But with most of the strong athletes I know, they're not that predictable to me, at least in my experience. So I kind of know where we're gonna end up being before comp, or at least where I hope we're gonna be. But most of the time, I just go block to block because, like, what matters with very strong athletes is to keep them in top shape, very close to comp. I don't like to build too much fatigue and then deload, or like you have to find the perfect spot and kind of navigate to be close to it as long as possible. So I know what works. I'm gonna keep the reference block, what works the best usually, for the last block. And until that, I just navigate very close to that rep range, that intensity through all the prep and just adapt block to block.
Okay. And, of course, this dictates the next part of the question, that is, how does your, average athlete, and of course, the answer could be different for intermediates and advanced and so on. Like, how does the experience of your typical athlete evolve throughout the blocks as they approach a competition? That is, because you said that you don't like to, introduce too much fatigue. So in terms of, the expected 1 rep max, the subjective feelings, like how is the experience of your average athlete developing over the course of the weeks?
Indeed. So I will take 2 examples. I won't take all of them because I got athletes that runs 3 weeks block, 4 weeks block, 5 or 6. I got kind of every range. I will work around 4 weeks and 6 weeks because I feel like they're most common. On a 4 weeks block, which is the very mainstream way of programming, I would like the first week to feel very fatigued until a certain limit. Like you don't have to feel crushed under the weight, but you still need to feel the interference of the precedent week on your training. You should still move well because you have all the stimulus from the week 4 that is still giving good feedbacks on your training. You just feel fatigued under the bar. Then the second week should usually the one where you feel the worst because you still didn't remove all the fatigue from the precedent block and you don't have the stimulus for the precedent week. So you kind of are in the mix of, I'm not feeling good, but you're still moving well because you're starting to recover anyway. So week 2 should move a bit better than week 1, but you should not feel much better than week 1. Week 3, you should start to feeling very good, and you should prime your week 4 where you normally feel very good. This on the primary day. On the secondary day, I would like to feel good on week 1, kind of good on week 1, good on week 2, very good on week 3, and then I deload the week 4 if it's before the primary day, just to kind of prime that primary session. On a 6 weeks block, I just end up doing 2 waves of 3 weeks on the primary day because going all up for during 6 weeks is too much. I feel like you don't get enough rest and you build too much fatigue on the primary day. As on the secondary day, where we don't need a very forced progression, we can do week 1 to 5 as a linear progression, but very, very small steps. And then I deload the week 6 before the primary day.
Okay, and so you touched upon this. I feel like you're saying that you prefer back-end deloads compared to front-end deloads, right? So you deload at the end of the block before testing, which makes sense, right? Because that gives you a bit more objectivity to the test as well, on top
Yep.
of priming for it. So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Indeed.
And so like we touched a bit upon this, but out of all the things we discussed, say that you would be in a scenario where you can track only one variable,
Yeah.
and like, you know, it can be one variable for programming and then one global variable in general.
Okay.
What would these variables be? And, you know, I'm talking about the fact that, for example, like Mike T came up with the stress index, right? Someone else might only want to look at tonnage. Someone else might want to look at tonnage times average intensity. So you can use combinations too, but it has to be
Okay.
one. So what would you say about this?
It's a very hard question. So I'm definitely not gonna be on the side of volume freaks. For me, volume is not the way to stimulate progress. It's one of the important metrics, but it's not the one. And I would actually say that if we're talking about especially beginner or intermediate lifters, okay, average intensity is the most important. Like if you want to keep a control of what training stimulus you're giving to the body, average intensity is the one that can really drive it no matter what you're doing. Okay. So I would say that's the most important one. Outside of training, I would say sleep. Since like food is kinda not, I'm not saying it's not important, okay, but we can all react differently to food intake, and hydration is very important, but not as much as sleep on the long run. I'm really talking on the long run, not on the specific day, okay. But yeah, for training, I would say average intensity is the most important one, because you can do everything you want on volume and frequency and all that stuff. If the average intensity is not the one you need, well, all that volume is useless, all the frequency is useless. So, you know.
Okay. And you know, when it comes to like intensity and volume, in terms of how you approach them, are you more you know, the coach that places emphasis on the total dose done during the week, or like you place a lot of emphasis on sequencing and priming, you know, and like recovery spacing? Like, do you tend to look more at total work done, or, you know, the quality of how it's done?
I'm more on the quality of how it's done. Like, I still, of course, aim for some lifters in certain periods to like progress on how many sets per week you're doing on each lift. I definitely never look at the tonnage. I think it's a very useless parametrics. Like, you know, it can mean everything or nothing based on what you're doing. So I kind of don't like it. I'm not saying other coaches who use it are wrong. It's just my point of view, of course. So yeah, I am very huge on finding patterns. You know, we're not robots, we are humans. So 1 week, you know, you do 4,000 of tonnage and it gives you good stimulus. The next week you do 400 for 4,200 kilos of tonnage, and it's kind of crushes you because your life external factors are very bad. So I like to find patterns. You have your primary day, your secondary day, maybe tertiary and stuff. And once you find the pattern, you can really adapt very easily. Like you're feeling good on your primary day, maybe you feel like you're too fresh, you just add one set on the secondary. You know, there are really easy steps to analyze and to adapt when you do that, instead of just doing volume for a certain amount of time. And then you end up after 2-3 blocks where sometimes you end up not having done what you needed, but you didn't knew because you just worked through certain percentages and stuff, you know.
And when it comes to these, you know, like approach, where you find the, I don't want to say the perfect recipe for an athlete, but, you know, recipe that works well enough. Um, how often do you feel like you need to change the recipe because at some point it doesn't work anymore, in your experience?
Hmm. Like honestly, most of my athletes, I would say at least the 75%, kind of stick to the same big pattern for at least 1 year, 1.5 years, you know. And most of the time, if we need to change something, it's because something changes in their life. Maybe they have less time or more time, more stress or less stress, or because there is a movement that really we are struggling to progress. So in that case, you have to kind of find a way to keep the rest as close as possible as it is, and just add or remove something for the movement that is struggling. So most of the time, I would say, once you find the pattern, you can keep it for a very long time with very small changes, like number of sets per session, average intensity, variations. And even when you kind of go through a plateau, most of the time it's not adding a frequency or changing the days that's going to make something big for that. It's kind of just keep it simple, which is not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. Just work again on the basics, like volume, intensity, and stuff.
Okay. And so, like, I think you partially answered this already, but we come at it from a different angle. Of course, as a coach, you have different tools that you can use to prescribe training, right? And you can be more prescriptive, you can be more reactive. You can use percentages, you can use RPE, you can use velocity, you can use combinations of those, right? What is your stance on this? So first of all, are you more prescriptive or reactive? And what kind of tools do you prefer?
Okay, so I'm definitely more reactive, but I adapt to athletes that kind of needs barriers. I got athletes that say to me, yeah, when you prescribe RPE, I just don't really know what I need to do. So in that case, I just prescribe a load range to keep it in. And but I would love to just prescribe RPE. I don't feel like as human athletes we need to be too worried about the precision of each set. Like, it's not firstly because you're doing 260 or 270 on the top set, or 215 or 222.5 on the back downs that is going to change everything's up. So I kind of like being more reactive, and most of the time strong athletes need some liberty, in my point of view. Take some responsibility in the choices, make them make the choice, like how they feel, how heavy they can go. But most of the time for the intermediates, I end up having some prescribed load range for giving them direction, because when you don't know where yourself and stuff, or through tough periods, you can easily be too emotional or too passive about your training. So you need some kind of guidance through the training. So in that case, of course, some prescribed load can help. I tend to be prescriptive only on light days. When I want really a train to be easy, I just prescribe a load or a close load range, but which is always very easy. Let's say just this. When we have to go heavy, I don't like to prescribe a load. I just kind of prefer to guide the athletes, and he have to make the choice.
Okay. And so, like, you don't think that and of course, again, the answer might change between novices, intermediates, and
Indeed.
and so on. Like, you don't think there's a value in saying, okay, in 3 months you have to eat a 5x5 at this load. Like, do you think there's a value in that?
I don't. Like, for some it works. I got a really good friend of me, the 105 Spanish champion, Tony, who works kinda this way. I know his coach prescribes him the load, like he doesn't have RP, he has the load, and he's get huge amount of progress. He's very strong, okay? But in my point of view, like, I never actually experienced that if you do a 5x5 at a certain load, it means you have progressed on a 1 ramp, most of the time, it's more a mental thing. Like, yeah, I did a 5x5 at 85, 90% of my max. For sure, I made some progress, and then you see athletes doing super heavy sets, getting comp, and they actually just gain 2.5 kilos on their 1 RM, it works for some, for sure, but it's not like I'm gonna say it once again, we are not robots, we are humans. So it's not just mathematics how it works for us. I kind of prefer an athlete of mine hitting a triple at RPE 7 with a load that was very heavy and then easy back downs, you know. That triple at RPE 7s that he never moved that fast will tell me more about him and his progress than a 5x5 when the first rep is a grind and the last rep is a grind at a heavy percentage, you know.
Okay, and so I'm gonna like challenge you a little bit with a
Indeed.
maybe question. So I'm an artificial intelligence engineer myself, and so like I'm curious about what you think, about the role of artificial intelligence over the next years. Because what we know is that in other elite sports, data analytics plays a role. Of course, the coach is still in charge. Like it's not like the data analytics replaces the coaches. Actually,
Indeed.
it's the opposite, right? It actually boosts the coaches.
Yeah.
But if you look at basketball with super advanced statistics, baseball, like so many sports, like Formula One, um, if like first of all, do you think it could be helpful to add advanced data analytics with AI to detect patterns in powerlifting? And second of all, if you think so, in which areas?
Okay. So indeed, data analytics can help a powerlifting coach. Okay, I'm not saying that numbers lie. They always have a part of truth in them. The hard part for an AI who's just recruiting data and organize that is taking in account the human stuff, the personal stress, relationships, work, business, and stuff. So, like, I feel like AI, it's obviously a very powerful tool in kinda every area for now, and it can help, like maybe gaining some time, having more well-structured data for the coach. But I'm just gonna jump in another question you're gonna ask, but I'm gonna answer it right now. I feel like how did you phrase that? The intuition of a coach is sometimes more important than the data analysis. You can kind of look at the patterns, the load, the number of sets per week, average intensity. You can actually take the best block, take the best leading block to that block, repropose that to the athlete, and it goes just very, very badly, Yeah, sometimes you take what's the best for the athletes in all his training career, you repropose that, and it goes really very, very bad. He gets injured maybe, or he just, every week he gets worse. So AI can help. I think for the most of the athletes, it could give really good informations. But when you talk about giving the true best of a person, the getting close to the true top end, that analytics is not enough. You have the mental stuff, of course, which is very important, but you have to, kind of have that intuition that this person is moving like this. He needs something different, and you kind of can't explain it. Maybe you get wrong. You can make errors during your career, but if you don't have that intuition, sometimes you just pass by giving the best shot to a very good meet, a very good session and stuff.
Yeah, that is very interesting because I feel like, um, even in other sports, the role of intuition has not disappeared, of course.
Yeah.
Like it's still there. I think it is the basis, right? Yeah, like what I'm interested in is, for example, you were talking about detecting patterns before, right? Sequencing, priming, and so on. And but even if that's useful for certain coaches, the total dose of work prescribed during the week, the combination of multiple variables, right? And we know that AI is really good at detecting patterns
Mm-hmm.
in multidimensional environments with like a lot of combinations. So yeah, like it's true that there's a lot of bias as well, right? Because there's psychology. Like I myself last year went through a period where, I felt like I was doing everything perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and, programming wise, it was. Turns out that psychologically speaking, I was not like in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
And once they switched, that flip, like, I started making a lot of progress again.
Yeah.
So, and that's something that AI cannot detect, right? So I agree that there's a lot of components. So yeah, I'm really like, I'm working with TSG on these matters as well. Like, I'm really interested in seeing, how it plays out, because we do realize that the scenario is like super complex, and there's many variables going on. And I think that the role of sports psychologists as well is going to be more and more important.
Indeed.
But yeah, like data analysis probably, is going to play a role too. And so one question to me is, um, when it comes to intuition, like, do you have a couple of examples of some moments where, and it doesn't have to be on specific athletes, like it could be a generic description of it, like of a choice that you made coming from intuition and not coming from data, so coming from the top and not coming from the bottom.
Yeah. So, first thing I want to add a little thing, like, of course, besides on what you just said, data analytics is super important. Okay, I understand that. I'm kind of bad with Excel and all the stuff, so I kind of struggle as well to have a really complex system of recruiting data. And I understand that as TSG does very, very well, recording that much information in that clear way of reading it is obviously helpful. Okay, the thing I don't like is, which is not for everyone, is that many people kind of ends up relying too much on that. That's the problem, like recounting data and having a huge database is very helpful, but there are people that doing that rely too much on that. That's just the problem for me about it. Okay. And about intuition, like I have some examples, of course. Like I got one athlete a few years ago, a 74, very strong Italian lifter he came to me injured. Okay. We had the first 3-4 months went very badly because we didn't find what worked for him. And then kinda based on his feelings and stuff, we just accepted the fact that he was a junk volume guy. He needed to do volume, and in a different way than usual. Like leading into a competition, his main day, his heaviest day, was top sets of 8 and backoffs of 8. That was his main day leading to a competition. That's where he pushed the intensity. He ended up doing 8s with RP 8, 9, close to competition. And the secondary day was actually the low rep day, still not singles, because singles really wrecked him. Like as soon as he did singles, his body didn't react very well. So he did doubles and triples with slightly more load than the 8s. Okay. And that worked super well on a picking block, which was just a feeling like, you can push singles, let's just push heavy sets, like kind of bodybuilding style. You take 8 reps, you push it super heavy, you can go higher P because the load is still not that heavy that it causes your body to shut down. And let's just try it. It works super well. And there was absolutely no data, no past experience that told me that heavy sets of 8 on a picking block was a good idea. I had this, she's very well known, Noemi Alabert. I coached her for a few years, and she was obviously a very strong deadlifter, and she was a small girl, less 52 kilos, and she was the first girl that strong that I coached. And I was coming for a bias where everyone told me, yeah, girls should do more volume than men. So of course I took into account that she was strong, so that volume should be kind of intelligently placed. But I actually end up coaching Noemi with one of the lowest volume I ever done at all on deadlift. Like she had 6 to 7 sets per week. Most of the time, the secondary day was kind of light. It kind of never went over 80% of her 1 rep max. And even on the heavy day, she had really aggressive jumps from week to week, I just had the idea that she didn't need weight, she didn't need volume on the dead to feel good. She just needed some accessory stuff because she had problems, like physical problems from her birth, for the one who knows. And so just put in a very light RDL on the secondary day, like with 70, 80 kilos and stuff. And that was the period where her deadlift was the strongest of all. She did 200 multiple times. I am sure if she could have continued that, she would have done more. So yeah, just reduce the volume as slow as possible, very low intensity. Even on the accessory, it was very kind of light. And that's what made the most progress in her deadlift, you know? So yeah, these are two examples of.
Okay. Yeah. And, these leads us perfectly to the next question, which, of course, you partially answered already. That is, in terms of programming, and of course, it's partly a false dilemma. Do you tend to be more top down or bottom up? Like, do you tend to, have certain ideas on how things work, certain principles, certain things that you want to see, maybe coming from, uh, your experience, decades of experience of the community and so on? Or do you tend to be more open to, possibly even weird combinations? And again, as I was saying, like, no one is truly A or B. But for example, the example that I always give is, Brett Gibbs training his deadlift basically in reverse. So high intensity and low volume in the first blocks. And as he approaches competition, lower intensity and more volume. And, I know certain people who would say that's not good. Like there's something off there that we're just not seeing. So instead of trusting the feedback emerging from the data, we should rely on what we know about training, and we should find a way to make the conventional way work. So what do you think
Yeah.
about that?
I never liked the idea that the athlete has to adapt to a method. Most of the time, especially if he's strong. Like most of the strong athletes, we tend to want to explain how he got strong, but he's just strong. Like, most of them are just strong. And you just have to find a way to make him stronger or to keep him strong. Forcing on someone your method is most of the time a very good way to get him hurt, to get him to not like training anymore. There are many things that can happen. That's why I wouldn't say that I have a personal method that I program. Of course, I end up doing, because I'm a human being. I have patterns in my mind that I don't even know I have, but the most important thing is that you have to program in a way that adapt to the athlete, especially if he's strong. When he's a beginner, you can kind of shape him and then find along the years if you need to adapt to something more non-conventional way of programming. And for intermediates, you can kind of go with the basics and find a way to make it work with adapting very small things. But still, an intermediate lifter is more receptive to many things. But as stronger you get, as more weird it can get. Actually, I've seen very strong lifters doing very weird stuff that I actually don't understand. Like why he's doing so. Well, he's doing so. So that's it. He's strong. He's healthy. So you can kind of take, like, let's say you take Agata Sitko, and you say, oh no, 6 SBDs per week, it's not good. Like, it's too much. We're gonna do 3 squats, 5 bench, 2 deadlift. Why? Like, she's healthy, she's strong, she's the strongest. So why would you do so?
Yeah. I think, like, I agree with you 100% with a caveat. That is, lately I've been seeing, certain people go too much in that direction. That is, say there's a lifter like who cannot tolerate a certain dose of work. I agree with you that, in a lot of cases it's just the way they are. In some cases it could also be that their work capacity is zero, right?
Indeed.
And so in that case, I think that, if you say, okay, this is, how the lifter is behaving, I'm just going to prescribe them very low doses of work, I think it would be suboptimal. I think it would be more optimal to recognize that the work capacity is just low, and you have to build it up, right? Because I've seen people go in that direction, and I don't think it's wise.
Indeed.
But yeah, like in general, I share your ideas as well. Like it's pretty clear that, especially as people get more elite, training gets weird, and it's okay. Like it's just the way they make progress. Yeah. So I agree 100%.
Well, of course, when I say that you don't have to force your programming way on an athlete, it doesn't mean that you have just to keep doing what he's always done. Since otherwise, you would be kind of useless. You have to find ways to make progress, and it may be taking something from your method. Just
Yeah.
don't exaggerate it. Like let's take the usual thing that we know about TSG, that you are very volume oriented. Of course, if you take an athlete, maybe if you put more volume in their training, it's a very good way because you master that. Maybe it's what he needed, but you do in an intelligent way. You just don't take an athlete who's been doing 10 sets per week of squats and put him to 20, 22 sets, or I don't know. That's the main thing. You can put your program at the service of the athlete,
Yeah.
but that means you add 2 sets, not 10,
Yeah. Also, like I would say that TSG's way of doing things has evolved a lot throughout the
Yeah,
years.
I can guess so.
Uh,
Yeah, like everyone should like.
yeah, exactly. Like I wouldn't say anymore that TSG is volume oriented. Like a few years ago,
Okay.
yeah. Right
Mm-hmm.
now, I say so. Like based on how team operates now, right now it's very focused on finding what works on the athlete. So there are
Okay.
some people who train at very high volumes,
Indeed.
but there are certain people that don't. So
Okay, that's a very good
uh,
thing.
yeah, that has changed a lot for sure. Yeah. Because like Jason is always so open to like evolving and learning new things, and improving on certain things. So yeah, I think that, that's something that I really appreciated last year when I entered the team.
That's a
Yeah.
very good thing. Like if you want to be a coach for many years and still be at the top, you have to adapt kinda and
Yeah,
don't keep stuck on your old beliefs.
exactly. Yeah. And so, uh, same question about technique. Do you tend to be more, and again, we touched upon this at the beginning, right? But we can expand a little bit upon it. Do you tend to be more top down, bottom up? Does that change for novices or elites? What is the role? Like, what is good technique for you? So
Yeah.
what do you think?
So good technique for me, it's just a base of 2 things. You don't get injured, and it's kinda efficient on your movement. Like you can express your strength at least a bare minimum. You just don't end up having huge technique problems that prevent you from going heavy. So as long as your technique's kinda good and it allows you to lift weights and you don't get injured, for me that's good technique. Then for optimal technique, it's a different story. And I tend to hate kinda the most of the technique optimizations, like, very extreme grip on bench, like very rounded back on deadlift to gain leverage, very low bar on squats, pre-hinge, like everything that adds to the movement constraints, things to think about during comp, like even with the orders, you can't pre-hinge before the squat command of the referee and stuff. It complicates stuff. I kind of like to keep it simple. You just have to be straight, have a movement that's objectively good. You don't need to get the bar down the shoulders to have good leverage. Most of the time you can play on other things that can keep it simple. And then for the rest, the athletes will find kinda alone what's the optimization he needs. A beginner, of course, you give him the basics, but a true beginner should start with a in real life coach. Like, if you're really very bad at moving under the bar, starting with a coach online, it's very hard. I can give you all the cues and stuff, but if you send me the training, you did anything of what I said, then you just lose time. But if you're at a certain level when you can afford to have an online coach because your movements are basically good, then the technique optimization goes mainly through experience and programming. Like you you put constraints under the load, under variations that will make you understand what your body needs to do. And you have as an athlete to learn your body, how it works. Your coach can help, your coach can discuss with you and kind of understands what's going on. It can give you guidelines, but even on that, I don't like to say the athletes, to retract your shoulders. Of course, sometimes you have to, because just the athletes is not very well set up, okay? But most of the time, just to give sensations, like you have to feel this, you have kind of feel that, and you have to find a way. Like I can find it for you, You have to understand your body, find a way to have the sensation that will give you an optimized movement. And through time, trial and error, and programming, the athletes should come to it kind of like if you guided it, but you didn't tell him what he had to do,
Yeah, that is very interesting. I was talking to Matt Vena a few days ago, and like he's a Canadian coach and lifter, very
Yeah, I
strong.
know him for sure. He's strong. Yeah.
And he was saying that basically like he uses submaximal loads a lot for this reason, in terms of just letting the body explore his things. Like, he wants to put the athlete in the condition where their body can, somehow learn the ideal movement. Because he was saying that let's say the eye and the intelligence of the coach do play a role, but they are not better than the prefrontal cortex of the athlete,
Yeah,
right?
I agree. Yeah.
And so that is an interesting thing. It's very interesting. And so what is the role of submaximal loads for you in this sense?
Like for me, it's kind of the the staple of a good programming. Like you can't touch loads that are too light. It kind of gets you nowhere in terms of progress and stuff. It can be from time to time for a recovery week, for a light day and stuff. But most of the time, if you're working below, I would say 75%, it's not forcefully useful unless you're doing very huge amounts of volume. In that case, you don't have the choice. But again, it's not my way of believing a program should be written. And but at the same time, you shouldn't go too heavy too often, at least, because when you go too heavy, your body doesn't find ways to be optimal. It finds ways to survive. If you go all the time over, I don't know, 95% of your 1 rep max, depends on the athletes, the weight class, and the training age, but you don't find perfect technique. You find perfect way to survive a certain load. And you kind of end up having so many compensation that your techniques downgrade instead of improving under a heavy load. So being in that perfect spot between 75 to 90%, 90 more percent should be kind of touched very rarely when your body is in the place to touch that, okay? And in that case, you can definitely have the perfect spot to improve technique, improve strength, and I still believe, though, you have to touch in training more than 90% from time to time, like maybe once, twice per blocks, depends on the movement, because like you have to keep track if what you're doing is working over a certain load,
Yeah, of course. And so in terms of your approach to technique, do you tend to be more prescriptive, for example, on setup rather than technique? Or do you treat both the same? Like what you were saying about letting the athlete explore these things, do you also apply that to setup? So anything that, comes before the barbell starts moving?
For me, setup is more important than technique under the bar. Like you can play a major role on that. You can be a kind of more prescriptive on that with the athlete because it's something that he still has full control on. You don't have still the bar on your body, and but still, again, you have to find sensations before actual cues, objective cues, activating the lats. No, like you just have to find the position where your shoulder feel stable but not blocked in a position. I take the bench example. Most of the athletes keep struggling because they force too much depression, too much retraction. They unrack the bar and they just end up in a position where they don't have control in the position. They're just blocked in that setup, So In the setup, you can a bit more prescriptive, still making the athlete understand why he does to feel a certain way. And the goal is next, when you are approaching the lift and starting the lift, you don't have to think about what you're doing. Like, if you do everything well on the unrack, on the bracing, on the pre-tensioning on deadlift, pulling the slack and stuff, once you start the movement, you should be set up in a way that you don't have to reflect anymore, and your body will do the right thing because you put the body in the place to do the right thing.
I see. And so do you think that there's a role for velocity tracking in all of this, like both programming and technique? How do you see velocity?
I see it as a tool like volume, actually. I don't dislike velocity tracking. Okay, it can give informations, but there are so many bias through that I don't think it's a metric that should take any kind of main role in programming, because velocity can be like faked with bad technique. You can get hyped. Like, let's take an athlete who knows very well himself and has a very good squat, and he start using velocity tracking method. Um, it should come the moment where he feels fatigued, and the bar is moving slower than usual, which doesn't mean he's less strong. It just means that day he's moving slower, okay? But as long as technique is very good and he's feeling solid, it can go up with the weights and still hit the prescribed RPE, even though velocity is not the best he can give. And there are so many variations in that hype, good technique, like maybe sometimes just the athlete's point of view, like let's put he's warming up and he's looking at the velocity tracking and he gets influenced by that, in a good or in a bad way. So as for volume, I just think that it's a good metric, but you don't have to rely on it. Like, it can give you information, but the velocity won't tell you more about what you're doing than what you're feeling.
Okay, so basically you see it more you see it as a monitoring tool rather than something that you use to prescribe training.
Yeah.
Something that is there, gives you useful information sometimes in certain conditions, but that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Like more a confirmation, you're moving well, you see
yeah.
the rest is good, kinda gets you going. You're not feeling good, maybe you see that the velocity is good, so you can say, okay, I'm not feeling the best, but I can go up a little, not as much as I wanted because I'm not feeling good. You should always trust yourself first, for most of the athletes. But I can kinda help you navigate through it, but I won't rely on it, indeed.
Okay. Okay. And because we see more and more advanced athletes start using a velocity tracker. Like Stance is getting very popular now. And yeah, I personally know that some elite coaches even use it to actually prescribe the training, right? So yeah. And yeah, I wonder, do you think that there could be some individuals where this works? I mean, actually, there are, because objectively they are making
Yeah.
progress. Like, what do you think their qualities are? Like, what do you think an individual should be like to profitably use velocity training in a prescriptive way?
So I think it has to be a very regular lifter, either technique wise or even hype wise. You have to be a lifter that doesn't get too much of that hype energy on your lifts, because you have to be like kinda steady on your lifts and your warm ups, your top sets. It kinda has to be all the time the same, uh, and you have to enjoy the mathematics. You have to be like a Cartesian person. You have to you like to know the whys, like, yeah, this is moving this way for this RPE, that's about that percentage, and you enjoy that. I feel like it can help because you just enjoy the part of it. But yeah, that's it. Like, I feel that the main ways to have a good training with the velocity tracker. You have to enjoy it. You have to be very regular on technique and hype levels, you know.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. So um, one question that I have is, you have um, quite a lot of background and years of experience in powerlifting. Compared to the beginning, is there anything that you changed your mind on?
Well, when I first started, of course, the main thing that changed is the periodization about training. At the beginning, 2016, well, it was huge on you have an off season, you do high reps with low intensity, then you get the intensification phase, and then you get to the peaking phase where you do low volume. So that was the main thing that changed, but there are a lot of details, like, as a coach, I understood that I don't have to like just like force myself onto the athletes. Like, when I began, of course, there were athletes that told me, yeah, I'm not feeling this variation very good, and I was, that's because you need it, like, it means it's working and stuff. No, I kind of learned to detach myself from the theoric point of view. Like, post squat helps you build tension in the hole. Uh, Tempo bench gives you control on the eccentric. Like, I just learned to detach myself from what people say and what's the mainstream for each variation, each program, technique, and stuff, and just think about it, why it should work, what's the outcome, and just understand why it can be so. And on during these years, I just know that squat post squat can help someone and completely um, make someone's technique worse, even though their squat is very similar, and you don't have to understand why. So, sometimes just this way. It's better when you understand why, but sometimes you can't, and it's okay.
hmm Okay. And we probably touched upon this already, but it could also be compared to the Italian community only or to the international community, even as you prefer. Is there one hot take that you have that probably you think most people would disagree with, or at least there would, this would spark a pretty strong debate?
Yeah, so I just thought about it before, and for now it's getting out of my head. Um, yeah, so I will take the second guess I had because the first is not coming to me, but it's the thing that women in general need more volume. I won't agree on that 100%. Like, in my experience, the fact that they have more volume in general, it's just because they are very close to light male lifters who also do a lot of volume, But if you take out of account the weight class and stuff, they're very similar to men to me.
Okay, interesting. And so would you say when you talk about volume, you mean like number of sets?
Number of
You
sets and average intensity as well.
Okay. Okay, interesting. Yeah. So okay.
Like,
That's
for me, the only metrics that go into account about volume, average intensity, and stuff is your weight class, your technique proficiency, and your how close you are to your top end. Otherwise, you don't really, like, if you take a girl that deadlift 200 in the last 52 kilos, and you take a man in the last 55 that deadlift 200 kilos, the difference, it's not that it's male or female, it's just the female is more close to our top end than the male is, probably. Okay. If you take the same kind of weight class with the same level training age and stuff, most of the time with the same proficiency, technique proficiency, most of the time they could train almost the same.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, that's something that yeah, I'd never thought about in this way. Pretty interesting. And I wanted to touch upon injury risk as well. Like in your experience, is there something that you can use to like differentiate between people who get less injuries and people who get injured a bit, more often? Do you think it's more like, do you think there's a genetic component? Do you think it doesn't explain it all and there's something else like psychological traits and so on?
So the main one, I will definitely say it's genetics. Like I've seen lifters training very heavy for a very long time, maybe with even kind of bad technique, or more stressful technique, who didn't get that injured as someone else would do. And there, it's most of the time just genetics. Your body is more resilient. Your past life uh, brought you to a point where your body is more ready to handle stress. On second point, I would say lifestyle indeed. Like most of the injuries that happens on my athletes preps is in stressful periods, either because again work, relationships and stuff. That's the moments where they're more easily to get injured, because most of the time in powerlifting you keep going as hard, even though external factors are very bad, which leads often to a overwhelming stress all around training, life, and etc. And your body can keep going with that. And the third would be being a good decision maker during training as an athlete. Like you have athletes that know and kind of are able to put the ego aside when they're not feeling it, and they're good decision making on the moment, and they say, okay, I should push today, but I'm not feeling it. Like sometimes you don't have a really bad pain, you just feel something not clicking in your body and you say it's not the moment for pushing. And there are others that just push anyway and they end up being injured because they didn't make the good decision,
Mhm. Okay. And do you think there's ever, a role for certain sessions where you have to push?
like even if you're not feeling so, like doing so.
I would say like you have to dig deeper into yourself, and you're like, okay, I don't feel 100%, but I have to dig deeper and push a bit more.
Okay, yeah, I still think that most of the time you should, like, if you're sick, you should train. If you're injured, you should do at the most you can do. And even you're not feeling good, and depends on the period. Again, if you're 8 months out of a competition, you should push a very heavy top set, and you're not feeling so, and you're sick. Of course, don't. But if you need it because you're close to a comp, you're close to something, or your training conditions are not that bad and you're just tired, go for it. Like we can't just wait to be in a good spot to lift. Like that would be too easy to it's a wonderful life, but no, you have to, most of the time, I would say at least 8 times out of 10, you should give it your best even when you don't feel like it. Maybe the 1, 2 out of 10 are, you have very good reason to not push very heavy and you should deload, reactive deload or stuff. But most of the time you should just push again through it. Yeah.
Okay. Where do you think we will be with powerlifting in 10 years?
That's very interesting. So, it's a very hard question because powerlifting in 10 years evolved so much. So we can't just predict if it's going to keep the pace or it's going to slow down or even accelerate, I think Sheffield, many people don't like the way that it changed powerlifting way of programming and stuff, because people at Worlds are maybe holding back and stuff, but it's the closest thing to making this sport professional. It's getting bigger and bigger each year. So I think that in 10 years, more lifters will be able to live, or at least have a earning income from the sport. Okay. I hope for sure that even like if you're not sponsored and stuff because you're not good on socials and stuff, even lifters that are just stronger that are going to be top Europeans, top worlds, top Asians, are going to get prize monies. That's indeed something I'd like to. For the powerlifting coaching side, I don't think in 10 years we'll have that much of an evolution, We're already kind of, I'm not saying pricey because it just the right value most of the time for the service we provide. But still, powerlifting is not going to be a rich sport very soon yet for the most of people. So most of us really have a lot of expenses for really low gain after it. So for the coaching side, I don't think it's going to change a lot. I hope and think that federations will make the right choices to professionalize the coaching team, to maybe pay the coaching team that's going out to handle athletes at internationals. But for the private part, I think it's gonna kind of stay the same as for now. Maybe with more opportunity, more choices, maybe more interventions like seminars, workshops, online courses and stuff will be more and more developed. So yeah, that's what I think about it.
Okay. And what do you think about Olympics?
So honestly, I love powerlifting, man. Okay, I love it. I don't feel like Power Olympics is the way for powerlifting. Like, people say it's kind of similar to weightlifting and stuff, but actually, powerlifting is very boring to watch for the mainstream people. You don't have huge turnarounds like in weightlifting where they change bars, they go one after the other. You can change the order all the time. In powerlifting, you have just a group of lifters going for it. There are much much more predictability on who's gonna win. It's not really enjoyable to watch Perkins going at Worlds because it's enjoyable to watch him because he's strong, but there's no match for him. As in weightlifting, you have many people bombing out. There's a lot of technique stuff, a lot of uncertainty what's going to happen, which gives the excitement of watching a competition. Powerlifting, if you don't follow the person, if you don't know the person, the struggles, the path that he's been on, you kind of don't get interested in what he's lifting. You don't get to enjoy a powerlifting meet on the screen. So I don't think it's going to work well enough to be part of the Olympics. And I think it's much more a sport that's going to get valued by shows like Sheffield and stuff, where they put the person in the first place, they put cinematics, they put lights, music, and hype around the lifters.
Yeah, I feel like we would have to change the format completely
Yeah.
in order to make it more fun. Because like you watch a basketball game and it's like, and then you watch a powerlifting meet, and of course there's still some fun in a powerlifting meet, but it's completely different, right? Because even Sheffield lasts like 5 hours, something like that. And if you watch a basketball game, like there's and highlight every 10 seconds, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's much more dynamic and so on. So yeah, I feel that. And I think we're still at that phase where people who like basically the audience of powerlifting is made of powerlifters, like people who coach or people who train. I'm not sure. Like, do you think we will ever get to the point where someone who doesn't even train watches powerlifting meets?
Honestly, no. As for meets are run right now, on even myself, most of the time I put a meet on the screen and I don't watch the full meet. Like during bench press, it's too slow. I get annoyed, so I come back only when there are lifters a lifter that I know that's very strong and I want to look at. But no, how meets are being run right now, it's very boring, and I don't even powerlifters don't look to the wall meet. So how could someone that's not powerlifting look at the wall meet?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Okay, so let's close with this question. Like, what question do you wish someone would ask you in an interview, but no one ever did or does?
Okay, so the question that's often overlooked is how do you get through the lows? Either as an athlete or as a coach, what keeps you going through the lows? It's a very hard question. It's a very subjective question, and everyone has different ways to deal with it. But yeah, I feel like on socials, on podcasts, on everything, kinda, we never tend to talk about the negatives of a path that you're walking on. Either be the moments of failure in training, either be the moments of doubts in a prep, either be as a coaching side when you don't get new athletes, you don't get results. Nobody talks about it. When you have a lifter who bombs out, most of the time you just don't talk about it on the socials. And I think it's a bad thing because we all go through that. There is no a single coach or a single athlete that has not thought about what I'm doing bad, why it's not working, why I don't get results, why this, why that. I would like to quit. We all go through that, and actually, no one answers that.
Okay, and what would be your take on this?
Which is not very helpful, maybe for many, but just have to have faith. Like you know why you did what you did as a coach or an athlete many times. In life, every one of us went through moments where you felt like you couldn't handle it anymore. You're like, no, this is too much. I don't know how to get out of this situation and stuff. And we always, at least as long as we are still alive, we ended up winning that situation and coming out back stronger, better than before. We had results, we had satisfaction, we had happiness. And just you have to keep in mind what the happiness moments gave you. And if it's a good reason enough to keep going, then keep going. If the moments of happiness are not giving you enough happiness to accept the struggle and then downtime and the sufferance, well, just maybe you have to think about quitting and changing stuff. We
Yeah.
are not stuck in this. You're not forced to powerlift if you live 2 years of depression, and just a PR that doesn't give you any satisfaction. You just can quit sometimes. But if you still think that the happiness you can take from this path, this fight you're fighting, is big enough, just keep going and have faith that it will be okay.
Yeah, and also like in my experience, I feel like those very negative moments are where if you have the right mindset, you can learn a lot, and you can actually make things much better. When the storm ends, basically,
Yeah,
right? So,
indeed.
the way I like to see it is, you cannot prepare for war when the war is happening. So you have to prepare in advance. So I
Yeah,
like to use the positive moments and the peace to prepare. And then when the negative moments happen, you're at war. It's not fun, but you have to, be in a mindset where you learn as much as you can from it, and you prepare for the next peaceful moment. And when
yeah,
the next peaceful moment comes, then it's a cycle again, right? So that's how I like
indeed.
to. Yeah.
Indeed, I like it. Yeah, that's true.
Okay, man. So I think it was fantastic. I had a
Thank
lot
you
of
very
fun.
much. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed it. I repeat myself. I already told you the questions were great. It's probably the best podcast, like the most interesting podcast I took part of. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's an honor for me. Okay. Thank you, everyone,
Yep.
for listening.